AITA for not letting my ex and his girlfriend have family time with my son? Every year I take my son to visit his great-grandparents. Usually, his dad, my ex, will be there too during the trip. And they'll spend a lot of alone time together since my ex doesn't see our son as often as I do. The only difference this year is that this time he brought his girlfriend with him. The trip has been a disaster. The first week we were here, my ex wanted to take my son out sailing. His girlfriend went with them. They came back early, and my son was crying so hard he threw up. When I asked my ex what happened, he told me he didn't know and that our son kept asking for me, and he told him they would see me when they got home. And he just started crying and wouldn't stop. Since my son has refused to go out anywhere with his dad unless I go too. He won't even stay in the same room as anyone else unless I'm there. I've tried talking to him, but it hasn't helped me understand his behavior. Yesterday, his girlfriend pulled me aside and told me I needed to give them space to have some family time. And that she really wanted my son to like her because my ex made it clear if he doesn't their relationship wouldn't last. I told her I wouldn't force my son to go alone with them, and she said she understood I was overprotective but that I needed to let his dad have time with him without me hovering. She kept asking me and I finally got annoyed and told her to tell my ex to talk to me if he had a problem. She basically told me that he was my ex's son too and that she knew it must be hard for me to see him move on. Lol. But that I was being selfish and acting jealous. She's been giving me dirty looks ever since. AITA? NTA. But stop communicating with the GF. She isn't the parent. Your ex needs to hear about the puking, crying and refusal to go. They're leaving something out. Why on earth is your son terrified to let you out of his sight? Maybe they asked him if he'd like to live with daddy and new mommy, and your son freaked out. Prying him off of you by force isn't going to convince him to like the GF. Has she never interacted with children? NTA. P.S. I hope you laughed in her face when she talked about how you were upset ex was moving on. NTA. Your kid gets upset enough to barf. That is kind of a visual that something happened on the sailboat that has him not wanting to be alone with his dad or anyone else. I am thinking that new girlfriend was pushing pretty hard to get kiddo to like her and become his new mom. And he took that badly. I could be terribly wrong about that. And you will probably never find out exactly what happened. But kid got scared and now has separation anxiety. Girlfriend is only acting in her own self-interest and could care less about your kid. Except she has to get the kid to like her or she is out. I don't know what the dealio is with the ex. He sounds like he might actually be good for your son. But he is acting all kind of crazy about this. The best thing is to give your son plenty of leeway to understand that nobody is taking him away from you. Nobody is taking your place and he is in a safe spot when he is around other relatives and friends. There's something wrong if your son came back and cried so hard cause that he threw up. Kids tend to be focused on things that make them happy. Like they will cry with a babysitter or teacher for a little bit and then forget why they cried and start having fun. NTA. Has your son been able to say what happened? NTA. They came back early, and my son was crying so hard he threw up. When I asked my ex what happened, he told me he didn't know and that our son kept asking for me and he told him they would see me when they got home. And he just started crying and wouldn't stop. Since my son has refused to go out anywhere with his dad unless I go too. He won't even stay in the same room as anyone else unless I'm there. I've tried talking to him, but it hasn't helped me understand his behavior. Something really messed up happened for your son to react the way he did. If I were you, I'd get some counseling for him if he keeps refusing to tell you what happened. As far as the GF is concerned, she needs to STF you and stop forcing your child to like her. That's not how it works, and it's her problem to deal with if your ex breaks up with her. NTA. But you would be if you don't get to the root of what happened to your son that day. Crying enough to throw up. There was some abuse. Do not rug sweep. Do not talk to the GF. Talk to a lawyer. Or at the very least, a child psychologist. Something happened. Something bad. And your son either feels responsible for what happened or is in fear of saying anything because someone threatened either him or you. Am I understanding correctly? Your son does not want to go anywhere with his dad without you? This is your son's choice? Then, NTA. I have been your son. I came home upset every time I had to spend time with my dad when I was young. My mom stopped making me go and always made it clear with me that seeing my dad was always my choice. Following your son's wishes is the best move as his mother. Sucks for his father. But you're also right. Your ex should be discussing this with you. And not his GF. NTA. I have a feeling there is something that they are not telling you that happened on the boat. Until you get the whole story. What you have said is very reasonable. Side note. I would also talk to your ex about communication. And what his GF said. If the GF cannot be civil and polite, she should not be speaking with you alone, and all communication needs to be through your ex or with him present. Absolutely NTA, and you should let your ex know what she said. You're right not to force your son into a situation he's not comfortable with. And her insistence makes me wonder if she said something to your son. How old is he? Info. How old is your child? My immediate gut feeling was that something traumatic occurred. And I think a lot of other people noticed that, too. It may also be attachment and separation anxiety challenges. I would recommend a therapist for either. Honestly, parents breaking up can be hard. And it seems like nobody knows what happened on the boat. If he, your child, stated he was scared or missed you, it'd be one thing. He refuses to talk about it, so I would want to rule out the darker possibilities. Info. How old is your son? I have very different answers if he's 2 or 10. I have a feeling this lady said something to your son. Probably along the lines of being his new mommy. You don't mention your son's age, but I'm assuming he's on the younger side. He must be very traumatized right now. Continue to support him and hopefully he'll open soon. Don't push him to speak, but make it clear you'll be there for him. Also mention to your ex the conversation his chick had with you. Maybe he can shed further light on the situation. NTA. NTA. Draw a hard line in the sand that the girlfriend gets zero input on how you and your ex co-parent your son. She needs to stay in her lane. I'm actually worried about what possibly could have happened while he was out there with them alone. That he came back crying so hard he was vomiting. NTA. His girlfriend should not even be talking to you about parenting stuff. She is way overstepping, and my guess is that is why your son was so upset. You need to protect him from her. NTA. Apparently your son doesn't want to be with your ex and her alone. Please don't force him to go like she's asking. NTA. Very presumptuous of EX's new lady to think that your child wants family time with her. What I'd be more concerned about though is that they left to sail with him and he came back very clearly traumatized to the point of what I assume to be unnatural clinginess given how you described it. That alone would make me not only keep the sun away, but keep an eye on them like a hawk. I know little boys can be especially attached to mom, but that behavior and so suddenly is kind of concerning, and you should try your hardest to figure out what caused it. BC I'm willing to bet it wasn't good. Your child is not used to your partner because, as you've mentioned, you spend far more time with him than your ex does. Being on a boat without you for a whole day does seem like a big step. He needs to sufficiently bond with his own father before adding a stranger to the mix. NTA. Trust your child's instincts. Don't talk to the GF. She doesn't get a say in what's happening at all. Discuss with your ex what has happened, especially what the GF has said. Info. How old was your son when you and your ex split up and your son started spending most of his time with you? How much experience with sailboats does your son have? Were there people on the boat your son has never met before? Did your son want to go sailing when the idea was presented initially?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.